Hi, friends. Hi, friends. It's Kate coming to you from my beautiful backyard, as always in the summer. So today it's about 85 degrees, 55% humidity, and the UV index is high. So my Mac got super hot again as soon as I set it out. But I wanted to try and get some filming done so you have something nice and wonderful to do over the long weekend. So I know I haven't been as consistent with my uploading schedule, but I appreciate your patience with me, and know that there's always a huge library. If I'm not uploading something on the day that you need something, there's a big old library of all my stuff that you can go back and through and pick out things that work for you, look for the tags and find something that's the right time and the right target. So I have been running recently, which, if you know me, is very out of character. Let's just say that. I've never been a runner. It's really hard on my knees. So I'm just kind of taking it slow. I'm using it to kind of treat a little arrhythmia that I have. So exercising my cardiac muscle and bringing myself back to more neutral, which is fabulous. But as a result, I have lots of new sensations happening in my legs where I normally do not carry any tension. So I thought I could show you some of the stretches that I have been using, some of the poses I've been using in terms of recovery, so that whether you run or not, if you want a leg-focused class, this is going to be it for you. So we're going to focus on stretching and finding mobility in areas where maybe you might experience some tightness if you do running or biking or any other activity that involves using your legs quite a bit. So as always, we're going to start out with seated meditation. So if you want to sit up, that's fine. You want to lay down, that's fine. I got my sunnies on so that I'm a little bit more comfortable and I can look at you. But find something that's comfortable for you, and we'll sit for a couple minutes and focus on our breath. So of course, after a run, maybe this isn't exactly what we would jump into, but for yoga practice, starting cold, we want to make sure that we're aware of our body, how our breath is moving before we move into any other poses. So for me, I'm sitting up on my two blocks that I like to sit up on, medium height. And we'll just take a couple of breaths all the way in and all the way out. If you feel comfortable, you can close your eyes. And then I would invite you to tune into a certain sensation that you might be feeling wherever you are. So for me, because I'm outdoors, I can feel the wind and it blows across my skin. You know what's really doing it for me today is the sensation of my mat underneath me. So feeling all the places that my body is in contact with the floor. So feeling the constant pressure across my shins, feeling my sits bones dropping into the earth. Feels really good to just pay attention to that sense of groundedness. And notice how your mind is moving today. If there's any tension in the body that you're drawn to. Take a couple more breaths here, all the way in and all the way out. And then when you're ready, you can slowly open your eyes if you have them closed. We'll inhale, reach the arms up overhead, interlace the fingers, palms face up, give ourselves a stretch. So when I run, my arms also get a little tight. So we'll bend from side to side. Inhale up, exhale over. You might also accumulate some tension through your abdominal wall. So we're just gonna ease some of that out. Big breaths all the way in and all the way out. And from here we'll inhale, shake out the arms. And then we'll take them nice and wide. So I like to take my arms out and try and reach as far behind me as I can. So just getting a stretch through the front of the arm and try to bring the fingers back behind you. And you might even get to feel a little bit of tingle here. If you're getting tingling sensations, that is your nerve stretching. So feel your shoulders dropping down your back and keep the low ribs in. So we're not throwing the chest forward, we're keeping it in. But finding a stretch through the arms. And release, and we'll roll through the shoulders. And then in the opposite direction. Wonderful. Now from here, I'm going to come onto our hands and knees. Move my blocks out of the way here. And we'll do some extended cat stretches. Now you don't have to do this after a run because you're already pretty warmed up. But since we're cool today, we're going to find some exhales and lift the spine. Inhaling and opening the spine. Exhaling and lifting, still pressing into the tops of the feet as much as you can. Inhaling and opening, still pressing into the tops of the feet. One more. Exhaling and inhaling, opening. Perfect. Now, when you use your legs in a lot of physical activity, there's a tendency for hamstrings and the calves to get really tight. So, a really nice option is to press the ball of the foot down behind us and act as if we could put our heel on the wall if there were a wall behind us. So we're simply pressing back. So this is kind of like a modified downward facing dog. It really allows you to focus on the stretch. And we'll release back. Do the other side. Big stretch. And release back. First side again. Big inhales and exhales while we're here. I like to keep my gaze down if I can because it keeps the back of my neck nice and long. Back to neutral. Exhale the other side. Fabulous. So now from here, we're going to spread our fingers nice and wide, tuck under the toes, shift the weight back, and come into downward facing dog. So if downward facing dog is not an option for you, you can stay on your hands and knees and do one leg back just like we were doing. So sometimes it's nice to press through one heel and then the other, but I find what feels the best for me is keeping my pose static here and just pressing equally down through both feet. So I don't want to end up being lopsided. So for me, keeping both feet down is really helpful. Now from here, we're going to take our right leg forward up towards our hands. Now you can choose to drop your knee or leave the knee high. I like to drop my knee just because after a run, I'm very tired. So you want to have something with some stability. But if you want it to be a little bit more vigorous, you can stay up in a high lunge. So either way, we're going to lift the chest up and make sure that our hips are parallel to the short edge of our mat before we start to lean forwards into our low lunge. Now if you have blocks handy, you can use them here. So I like to have them on the highest height. And as my knee on the front leg comes forward, the hip of the front leg reaches back. And I want to try and lift my chest. So the more you lift the chest, more of a back bend you're going to experience. So you're going to get more of a stretch across the hip flexor and into your psoas, which is a really deep muscle across the front of the belly here. It's a super strong hip flexor, and sometimes it can be hard to stretch. But this pose is good for it. And then we'll shift the weight back and we'll come into a half splits pose. So we're going to flex the front foot. We're going to have our hips stacked right over the back knee, and we're going to work towards coming into a forward fold. So slowly taking the chest and leaning it forwards over our straight leg. So you'll feel a big stretch down through the back of the leg here. You might even feel it wrap up into the glutes on the back of the pelvis. And then we'll shift the weight forward. We'll tuck under the back toes, lift the back knee, and we're going to step the back foot forward just a little bit. So now we're in a pyramid pose. So back foot is forward and to the outside, so we have some nice horizontal space, and then we have enough room to manipulate our hips so the front hip reaches back and the back of our pelvis is nice and parallel. So you see we're reaching the chest forwards, reaching the hips back. Both hips are still parallel to the short edge of our mat here. Big stretch. This is wonderful for people who get really super tight tensor fascia lata through here. Now from here we're going to take the back foot, step it forward, and we're actually going to cross our legs. So we're going to take the back foot, bring it back and behind the front foot. So you can see I have the outside edges of my feet roughly stacked right next to each other. The outside edge, or I should say the inside edge of my left foot, so my back foot is lifting up just a little bit. So I'm really balancing on the outside edge of the foot here. Now we're going to take our hands, and because I have my right foot in front, I'm going to take my hands and walk them off to the right. So there's a little bit of a twist here happening. I find that when I pick up the inside edge of my foot here, behind my left foot, I get a little bit more effective stretch through the ankle and through the outside edge of my hip and my glute. So the front knee can be bent any amount that makes it comfortable for you to reach down towards the floor, but we're trying to keep the back leg, the left leg that's tucked underneath the right foot, straight as much as possible. All right. Then from here we'll transition back through downward facing dog. And if it's comfortable for you, add in a little trick here. So I get really bad shin splints. So the tibialis anterior, the muscle that runs along the side of our shin bone, gets tight when there's a lot of dorsiflexion, so the top of the foot coming up towards your shin, like what we are doing now. So in order to counter that, we can take our feet. Now this is if your feet can stand it. You don't have to. You can do one at a time. But you can take the knuckles of the foot and put them top down. So your toes are now touching, tops of your toes are now touching the floor. And you're reaching with your leg to try and straighten it out. So you can do one leg at a time. I like to come up on my tippy toes with the other leg to give myself some height. Or you can do both. And then whenever you get your feet stacked, little kids like to do this, we press the shoulders back towards the legs. So shifting into kind of a deeper pike. You can do one leg at a time like I mentioned, or do both. And then when you're ready, we'll release, and the left foot is going to come forwards. So we're going to do all that again. So here we are in our low lunge or our high lunge, depending on your preference. I like low lunge. I'm going to bring my blocks right underneath my hands. And as I shift forwards and keeping my hips parallel, so my front hip is not reaching forwards and away, I'm going to lift the chest. And as soon as I get the chest lifting, that's when I really start to feel the stretch here. So you can engage the glute on the back leg, which will help open up through the front of the hip flexor here. Drop the tailbone down. And then when you're ready, we can shift back, flexing the front foot and coming into flexing the front foot and working towards forward fold over the extended front leg. So just do as much as you can, finding space. Big inhales and exhales. Reaching forwards with your heart. And then when you're ready, we're going to flex the front knee again, come forwards. Move our blocks out of the way if you don't need them, but you can use them for your pyramid pose, which is up next. So we're going to tuck under the back toes, lift the back knee, step the back foot forward and to the outside just enough so we can come into pyramid. So we're reaching the front hip straight back as much as you can. Reaching the chest forwards as much as you can. All right, now when you're ready, back foot is going to come forward and tuck to the outside of the front foot. So now my right foot is tucked back behind my left foot. Outside edge of my right foot is down on the mat. I like to let the inside edge of my right foot to come up a little bit, but you can keep it down if it feels good. By lifting it, I can maintain a little bit more of a straight ankle. So now from here, we're just gonna walk the hands off to the left. Left foot's in front, left hands walk off to the left. You can bend the front knee if you need to, but we're keeping the back leg straight as much as possible. Feeling a big stretch through the tensor fascia lata, up into the glute, maybe down the IT band, the iliotibial band, towards the ankle. And then when you're ready, we'll inhale and release back to center. We're going to unwind our legs, bring both of them down and underneath us. We're going to bend the knees. Inhale, come all the way up to standing. Hands above the heart. We can inhale, reach above our head again, giving ourselves a big stretch. And release. We're going to do a little bit of a quad stretch. So I like to do them standing. You can also combine them with a low lunge if you want, but I like standing. It's not as much pressure on my knees. So if you can balance, do that. Otherwise, hold on to a piece of furniture if you need to. We're going to take one foot, bring it back behind us, and we're pressing our foot into our hands and dropping the tailbone down. So there's no lifting of the pelvis here. We're keeping this nice and neutral. So as much as we can, pressing the hands, or pressing our foot into our hands. Standing up nice and tall and not sinking into the standing leg. So the hip on the standing leg is coming up and underneath us. And then release. We'll do the other side. Big breaths. Trying to straighten out your leg. Wonderful. So we'll release. Inhale, step up to the top of the mat. Exhale, come forwards. Plant the hands, step back to our downward facing dog, if that feels good to you. So one more big stretch here, across the backs of the heels. And then we'll turn over the toes, either one at a time or both, and do our tibial stretch again, tibialis stretch. So we're tucking under the toes, curling them, and shifting our chest back towards our legs. And a nice stretch. And then when you're ready, we'll just release down to child's pose. Take a breath or two here. Release the shoulders as much as you can. Inhale, sit up. Come through two more poses. So we're going to roll down onto our back. Shifting all the way down. We come through bridge pose. We get a little bit more opening across the front of our hip flexor. So hands down on the mat. Inhale, lift the hips straight up. Take a big inhale here. On an exhale, allow your hips to come all the way down. Inhale and lift. Squeezing the glutes, allowing the front of the hip flexor to open. Exhale, come down. One more. Inhale, come up. And exhale, come down. And we're going to draw the knees into the chest. Give them a squeeze. Then we're going to take the arms wide, palms either face up or face down, whatever is most comfortable for you. We're going to take the knees, drop them over to the left, trying to keep both shoulders down. inhale through center, exhale over to the right. Now we'll inhale through center, give our knees a squeeze. And then we'll come into Shavasana. Now, of course, you can always choose traditional Shavasana. But for me, I like to give myself a little bit of a lift. So I'll put blocks on the lowest height, just so that I have a little bit of flexion here at the hips. And relax all the way down. Take some big inhales and exhales here. I like to try and press my whole back into the floor with each inhale. And then release any extra tension you might be holding on to. Release any residual control you might be holding on with the breath. And just soften quietly into Shavasana. Of course, you are always welcome to stay here as long as you wish. But if you'd like to end with me, you slow. Now, of course, you are always welcome to stay here as long as you wish. But if you'd like to end with me, we'll start to find some small movements in fingers and toes, wrist or ankle circles, a roll of the head, stretch of the arms, whatever helps you feel at home in your body. And then whenever you feel ready, you can slowly roll off to one side, doesn't matter which, and then slowly work your way back up to seated. So I hope that this class was helpful to you, that you can use it in your own life in your own way. And I hope that the sweat pouring off of me did not read on camera. But I'm happy that we could all be together today. So as always, thank you very much for practicing with me today. Take care. Namaste.